Would you vote to elect a cat president?
Huh?
If you're on the internet, there's a good chance you at least considered saying yes. I mean, cats are sort of the patron saints of the internet, right? But some people have done more than just consider the question. And not just with cats either. In fact, people have actually voted for or chosen all kinds of animals to hold different types of public office. You're probably wondering, is that even legal? Can a cat really be president? Well, the answer is, of course not. Though, there are some interesting technicalities. No one ever really thinks that an animal is going to be voted for public office, so it's rare to find it written into law, quote, "This office must be held by a human." People are generally reasonable that way. As bad as things have gotten in different places at different points in history, no one has really thought putting a dog or a monkey in charge of a country would make things better. That hasn't stopped people from writing in different animals on ballots, though, or stopped different companies or governments from installing animals themselves. There's all kinds of reasons for this. Sometimes it's to make a political statement. Other times, it's as part of a PR campaign to reach out to constituents. And in some cases, the animals even sort of, serve an actual function. We're going to take a look at all of the above and what it means and looks like when people choose an animal for public office. One of the earliest known cases of an animal being considered for public office happened all the way back in ancient Rome. Caligula, the third Roman emperor, once threatened to make his horse, Incitatus, a senator. Other stories go as far as to say he was going to make Incitatus a consul. That would basically have been naming the horse vice president. You may have heard this story as evidence that Caligula was insane, but the story behind it is more interesting than that. Caligula had a bad reputation with the Roman Senate, who thought he was abusing his powers. Caligula, for his part, thought that the Senate weren't doing their jobs and spent too much time sucking up to him instead of actually helping to run the country. So Caligula threatening to give his horse government office was him basically saying, my horse could do a better job than you guys. Incitatus, by the way, is Latin for swifty, just to make the idea of him being vice president of the Roman Empire even funnier. All rise for Vice President Swifty.
All rise.
Now, without realizing it, Caligula set a standard for animals in political office. A lot of the times, a non-human ends up on a ballot. It is meant to send a message. That's how Boston Curtis, a donkey, ended up running for and winning a Republican Party precinct seat in Washington State in the 1930s. Boston Curtis's campaign was run by Mayor Kenneth Simmons. He wanted to prove a point that voters would blindly vote for whatever candidate their party ran without doing any research. Imagine people's surprise when they found out they had chosen a donkey. Now, something similar happened in 1950s Brazil when an effort was made to vote a rhinoceros named Cacareco to the Sao Paulo City Council. Cacareco was a favorite attraction at the local zoo. At the time, accusations of corruption of the city council were so rampant that it was believed the animal would make a better council rhino. Now, going back to something I mentioned earlier, people tried to argue that the Brazilian Constitution technically didn't say you couldn't have a rhino run for office. Still, Cacareco was rejected as a candidate, but that didn't stop people from writing her in. In fact, on election day, 100,000 people wrote in Cacareco's name for city council. Technically, she won. 100,000 was more than any other party's candidate received. Now, even if the rhino didn't get to hold office, it sent a clear message to the city council. The election results were covered around the world. It struck a special chord in Canada, where the Rhinoceros Party was formed in 1963. Keeping with Cacareco's nomination, the Rhinoceros Party doesn't have a serious political platform. It's an ongoing performance art piece meant to provide some humor around election seasons. Some of their campaign promises have been to install a Canadian queen in Buckingham Palace and giving every homeowner their own private nuclear power plant. But speaking of Buckingham Palace, England heard about the whole let's give an animal political office thing and really decided to go one step further. That's right. In England, some animals hold actual political offices. Specifically, our friend the cat. Now this goes back before the internet too. Way before. Since the time of Henry VIII, the chief mouser has been responsible for keeping government offices free of rats and mice. Now, this is an official government position. The mouser is expected to kill dangerous vermin, and human employees are expected to provide it with water and basic care. The very first one belonged to Cardinal Thomas Wolsey, Henry VIII's right-hand man. Well, one of them. Henry went through right-hand men the same way he went through wives. But since Wolsey's cat there has been an official chief mouser designated to keep kings, queens, and prime ministers' offices and bedrooms vermin-free. England only started keeping official records in the 1920s, so we don't know much about the cats who held the office in the years between. The first officially recorded mouser was an orange cat named Treasury Bill, who held office from 1924 to 1930. Ever since, there have been 11 more chief mousers. Some have served multiple prime ministers. The current chief mouser, a white and tabby cat named Larry, holds the record of having served the most prime ministers. He has killed vermin through 6 administrations between 2011 and 2024. Now, if you're wondering if chief mouser means that there are lesser mousers, you would be right. The chief mouser is in charge of 10 Downing Street, residence of the Prime Minister. It's basically the English White House. But there's also a Treasury mouser, a Foreign Office mouser, and even a Post Office cat. The most famous Post Office cat was Tibbs, a chunky tabby cat who prowled the headquarters of the English postal system for 14 years. He earned the nickname #1 Cat, and when he died in 1964, papers around the world ran obituaries. Now, Japan took a look at this and really ran with it. In fact, they decided to build their economy around it. In the face of a struggling economy, the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs started a program called Cool Japan. Now, that was just what it sounded like. The program's goal was to make Japan seem cool, both to foreigners and to revitalize the domestic economy. Businesses were encouraged to adopt mascots and hold promotions that would get people excited and stimulate the economy. One of the most successful Cool Japan stories belongs to Wakayama Railway's Kishi Station in Kinokawa. In 2004, Kishi Station was suffering from the country's economic woes and faced being shut down by Wakayama. Then the station manager took in a stray calico cat he named Tama. He fed her regularly, and she began hanging out on the platforms, seeing passengers off and greeting them when they arrived. Tama became a local celebrity. When word got out that the station was going to be closed, there were protests so that Tama would not become homeless. The outcry was so big that not only was the station saved, but the rail line officially hired Tama as station manager. Like England's chief mouser, this wasn't just about publicity. Tama was salaried at 1 year's worth of food every 12 months, given an actual office with a bed and a litter box, and a real gold name tag. As a direct result of the publicity Tama brought to Wakayama, they saw a 10% increase in profits, totaling 1.1 billion yen. Tama did her job so well that she was promoted to superintendent in an official ceremony involving the president of the rail company and the mayor of Kinokawa. This technically made her one of the most powerful females in corporate Japan. The next year, Tama was knighted by Prefectural Governor Yoshinobu Nisaka. She was also elevated to Wakayama's C-suite as operations officer, making her literally the third in line in the company. This was the first time that an animal was legally elevated to executive status in Japan. Wakayama's business model became the basis for an economic policy called Nikonomics, in which Japanese businesses use cat mascots to improve profits and make themselves more relatable. Tama served Wakayama for 11 years, eventually passing away from natural causes at the age of 16. A Shinto funeral ceremony was held for her at Kishi Station, and she was declared a goddess. Today, a bronze statue of Tama and a dedication plaque are located in a small shrine at Kishi Station. Even after her death, people continue to frequent the station, which is still patrolled by a number of her successors. From protest candidates to corporate executives, animals have had an unusual but fascinating role in business and politics. We've touched on a few of them here, but history is filled with similar stories. The most important takeaway, though, should be to always treat our furry friends with love and respect, even if they don't hold political office. Thanks for watching this episode of Weirdly Legal. Be sure to like this video and follow the channel for more unbelievably true legal facts.